Hello everyone, Ace here, and today I've decided to have yet another look at some video game history, and in the process answer the question, what exactly made Turn and Burn No Fly Zone great? First released all the way back in 1994 exclusively for the SNES as a sequel to the original Turn and Burn for the Game Boy, and later getting a re-release in the form of F-14 Tomcat for the Game Boy Advance, Turn and Burn No Fly Zone is a tragically obscure game these days, but one that, if you should find and pick up, is nevertheless quite the blast to play. On the other hand though, it isn't difficult to see why this game is so obscure these days. Turn and Burn as a game didn't really reinvent the wheel in any notable way. It's not a game that's had a particularly massive impact in terms of things that it has influenced. And despite the complexity that one typically associates with the flight sim genre, Turn and Burn No Fly Zone is by contrast relatively straightforward in what you can expect in terms of the gameplay loop. You shoot down enemy aircraft, you engage in the occasional strafing run, and then of course you land on your carrier, with occasional landings mid-mission to refuel and rearm to boot. This game was built pretty much around the gameplay loop seen in the original Top Gun for the NES, except fixing everything that Top Gun did wrong. In other words, where Top Gun had no gameplay music at all in the background, which while not uncommon for flight sims in general, still did not work in the favor of Top Gun and helped make the gameplay feel even more slow than it otherwise would have. By contrast, Turn and Burn has some of the best music ever put into a flight sim, period. Additionally, the landing sequence in Top Gun had the issue of being way more confusing than it perhaps should have been, resulting in a lot of people crashing when trying to land their bird. By contrast, Turn and Burn completely addressed this issue altogether, meaning that most people can in fact land the aircraft in Turn and Burn, which does lead me to something that perhaps a lot of people overlook, because despite the claims that Turn and Burn is supposed to be a realistic depiction of the F-14 Tomcat on the SNES, that's not really the case. Even considering the standards of flight sims in 1994, at least including games on PC, Turn and Burn No Fly Zone still very much falls into the category of sim light, and a fairly arcadey one at that. But that does ultimately lend to the game aging far better than it perhaps otherwise would have. Turn and Burn is still pretty fun to play even to this very day, not despite it not actually being a real flight sim, but more kind of in some cases because it wasn't trying to be one. Like it or not, there is very much a market out there for more arcadey style games that have the aesthetic that people would associate with an actual flight sim, but instead with more arcadey gameplay. And simply put, this is something that Turn and Burn No Fly Zone pulled off spectacularly. If there's anything that has made Turn and Burn No Fly Zone great, it has to ultimately be that. It's an excellent first game for newcomers of the flight sim genre, and more experienced veterans of the genre will find it to be quite an enjoyable popcorn game. With all of this in mind, this has been Ace, and I hope you'll agree when I say that Turn and Burn No Fly Zone is great.